Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Hello, everyone. This is Danny Gavin, founder of Optage, marketing professor, and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm really excited today for a very special guest, my own cousin, Raphael Gavin. We just call him Ailey. So in the episode, we're going to call him Ailey Gavin, head of content production at Levergy. He recently joined Levergy, an industry-leading passion marketing agency, helping brands be more culturally relevant and commercially stronger through the things that people love, their passions. They're one of the most awarded agency in their industry, working with some of the world's biggest brands. They uphold two core beliefs: brutal simplicity of thought and diversity of thought. Prior to this role, Raphael worked in content production in some of South Africa's top agencies and has been part of some iconic pieces of marketing content. Today, we're going to talk a bunch about content creation and a little bit about working with family. How are you doing, Ailey?
How's it, Dan? So lucky to see you. I see you've done more homework than I did when I joined, but whatever you said was 100%. And yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, and just as your cousin, I'm super proud of you just with everything that you've accomplished. And it's awesome that two cousins who have the same birthday, by the way, can, actually get on a podcast and talk. It's very special for me.
And me, yeah. And like we said before we started chatting, happy birthday. And yeah, it is quite special that we can share a birthday, share a passion, share an industry as well. So this is also very special for me as well, yeah.
So let's talk about where you went to school. I know you went to varsity. You didn't necessarily finish. What was the road? What was the path there?
When I was younger, I went to an all-boys school called Torah Academy, very religious Jewish school. And my brother had moved schools and went to another school called Yeshiva College. They held great programs, and it was really close to where he was and where my parents were as well. So I moved much later on in about standard 8, I want to say. And yeah, I really loved it there. So and then went on to start a BCom marketing. I got into third year, full-time studying, and realized, probably I knew this from many, many years in school, but realized studying wasn't really up my alley, to be honest. A lot of debates went back and forth before I decided to actually just remove myself from the studies environment and really try and look into getting more experience into something that I think was needed. Be it I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I was going to be in business or I was going to go to something else. But an opportunity arose, and I grabbed it with both hands in order to get more experience. Because I do think there is a very big place when it comes to studies, school, universities, or college, wherever we might be. But in my very humble opinion, I don't think there is a better a degree, for lack of a better term, than experience. Failing forward only comes with experience. If you can fail or succeed, fantastic. But failing is, I find, the best degree possible. Obviously, failing comes from doing. Having a practical, knowledge of whatever you're doing. And I always thought, failing was a bad thing, and you had to go to school and study and do all these things. But I made many a mistake when I first started, and it has brought me where I am at the moment. And I have a lot of, successes and things like that. I found that just getting the experience was best suited to me.
So I think it's a good time to tell everyone the amazing boardroom story, because I think it's hilarious, but also so insightful of how you actually kind of, entered the industry.
I feel like you're shaming me here a bit here, Dan, but that's fine.
But hey, it's how you started. It's not
how I
where
started.
you are now.
I don't know. I may finish the same way, but nonetheless. So, excuse me the terrible lack of terminology here, but I was very young and I was a bit of a bum. I was doing things that only young people should do, and I can't do at the moment. I can tell you that. And I was bumming around. I was having a good time, really just sort of, I want to say figuring myself out, but I think that's probably being a bit too positive about it. My dad, Louis Gavin, who has been quite a phenomenal figure within the advertising industry in South Africa, and probably some overseas stuff as well. He had left his advertising agency and was trying new things. And one day, him and one of his partners were looking to start an advertising agency. That advertising agency was called OpenCo. And while he was starting, I was sort of, apologies for this, but I was sort of probably at home hungover. He grabbed me and he's like, come boy, you're now going to come and build some desks for my new office. There was no role. There was nothing. It was just come and get a screwdriver and put some desks together, be useful. I tried to be useful, I think. And we put some desks together. They were very well made desks, but I don't think that was my calling. And their first client that they got, they weren't the biggest agency. They were still freelancing creatives out and things like that. And they asked everybody who was in the agency or the building at that time, like, guys, come. Let's go meet the client. There is a lot of a need to show volume of resource, of scale and things like that. And weirdly enough, I don't know how it happened. I remember getting in the car and then I remember sitting around in a circle with all these marketing directors and marketing managers. Everyone was going around being like, this is me and I do this and this is my title. And I was sitting there going, damn, I mean, I feel like I had a screwdriver in my pocket and like, what was I supposed to say? Like, I've got to, I'm putting desks together. So I panicked. I've taken many a lesson from that panic. And I said, hi, I'm Raphael, and I'm sort of just here to learn. And I thought I nailed it. Apparently I didn't. The MD who was sitting next to me, he was infinitely known for having a moleskin diary. And I remember it very clearly. And he pulled it out and he wrote, your new title is account executive, and pulled it off and gave it to me in the middle of this round circle of all these big dogs in the industry. And that was my first contract. And I sort of stuck with advertising for many years after that. You know?
It's so cool. So you were in the right place at the right time, and you had people around you that actually cared, which is so cool.
That is 100%. I have, if I can say anything in my career, is I've had the luck and the fortune of being around the right people, especially at the right times. Yes, yeah.
So talking about being around the right people, so how would you define mentorship?
So mentorship, I think, is a tricky one, because I don't think you can sum it up in a singular word. I think mentorship is as much as give as it is with take. There's always something to learn from someone, and there's always something to give to someone. But I think there's like three pivotal sort of elements, which I think is important with mentorship. One of them, I think, is communication. Communication goes obviously both ways. There's no point of banding about sort of discussions or doing anything like that. It's about clear, concise communication both ways, from who you're mentoring or who the mentee is. Because, like I said, there's ways of learning from everybody. Everyone's had experiences. Everyone's had pasts. So communication is key. Mutual trust, I think, is also very important. Without trust, I don't think people can employ a resource or a person to do something. Basically, what you're doing is you're micromanaging. And I don't think that's ever appealed to anybody who you've either mentored or asked someone to do something in some sort of business respect. And then lastly, I think it's tailored guidance. Like I said, I didn't go to university, college, but the guidance I received was paramount to the things that I've learned, what I've done, where I've landed up, and ultimately sort of who I am at the moment. So if you sum it up in those three pillars, I think that's what's quite important to me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great perspective, especially from where you're sitting in an advertising or marketing agency. So Ailey, let's talk a little bit about some of your most influential mentors, either like what they gave you or maybe, other stories, situations that you've been where people really, led you in the right path.
I find mentorship comes from anybody and anything. Number one, so this might sound a bit cheesy, but it holds dear to me. Number one is my wife. She's dedicated like her life to show us how things need to be done, organized, put in place, things like that. She's helped find who you are, draw it out, obviously from myself, and allow someone to be them. So this isn't a shout out to her. What I'm saying is, I think you can find mentorship from anybody, right? The second one was they started the advertising agency that I did speak of earlier, which was OpenCo. There was Sean Donovan and my father, Louis Gavin. Sean Donovan was the driving force of who taught me what client service is, how to deal with clients, interactions with them. Making a mistake is not the biggest thing in the world. All you got to do is show up again tomorrow stronger. I can tell you a story about that. I'm not sure if all your viewers would enjoy it, but
we do want to hear it.
You want to hear the story. Here's the story, and this is how it goes. We had been celebrating, and there were drinks that were flowing, and it went late into the night, as advertising parties do. And there was some mishaps, there was some arguments, and it got a bit rowdy. I got a call, it was on a Friday, and I got a call over the weekend to say, listen, Raph, I think we need to talk. And it was early in my career, and I was, oh no, I'm going to have to find a new career. But what he did is he actually bought me a cup of coffee on the Monday morning, and he said, listen, what you did wasn't right. However, I understand these things happen, and he gave me a bit of insight into certain things. And he said, all we can do is show up. It was before 9 o'clock. He said, 9 o'clock, show up and bring your best. Let's do that. And from there, I just realized, this is a type of individual who doesn't judge you on your flaws, doesn't judge you on the breaks that you have with whatever it might be. It's about pushing you as a human being, as a person, as a resource of an agency or a business to show up, do better at every single turn and time that you can get.
Wow. I feel like that's like a defining moment, right? Because it could have gone either way, but for someone to literally like instill the power into you, like that's so special.
Yeah, look, every time I have made mistakes, and everyone has made mistakes, I think back onto that and I realize, yeah, cool, we made a mistake, be it whatever this mistake was. And I always do look back and think, how do we get to the next step? Yeah, it was not right, it was wrong, there was a break in some way or form. How do we fix that and show up better? So it was a defining moment for me. Yes. Yeah.
So obviously now that you're more at a senior position, you are dealing with a lot of juniors. How do you mentor them? Any specific things like that you learned from the people before you that you give over to them?
I find what I try and achieve is always being there for them to showcase support, help, take them through the shared experiences that I've had, the challenges that I've faced, overcome or had not, and obviously try and evolve their aspirations into something that they want to be, where they want to go. We all here thinking that we're grinding from 9 to 5, but everyone's got an ambition, everyone's got aspirations. And I think if you are able to assist whoever you are mentoring on the right path, I think they would respect you for that. They might remember it like I have remembered, and hopefully take the insights that you might have passed on to them to the next generation, I suppose.
And I think sometimes as being like a senior manager or a manager over someone, sometimes you're scared to find out what they really want. Because then it's like, ooh, are they leaving? Am I going to help them leave? So it's sometimes it's a little bit of a battle. So when you know that someone wants to be more and greater, and that most probably means they're not going to be sticking around. So you want to help them, but on the other hand, by helping them, they're going to leave. How do you deal with that?
There's no easy way to deal with something like that. But the purpose of either mentoring or the purpose of being at a company is twofold. One is for you to give your best to the company to help grow, to do the things that the company requires. But vice versa for the company to do the same for you. There's no point of keeping anybody at a junior level or having less understanding, because all you're doing is you are not allowing someone to bring their best. Will people leave? Yes, people will leave. They'll find opportunities. They'll do different things. But that's not what you need to focus on. What you need to focus on is allowing them the opportunity to grow, to get to the state where they need to be. So I suppose you can look at it as a bit of I might be getting a bit philosophical over here, but you could look at it as a bit of like a father-child relationship. I mean, that's what ultimately happens. You grow your children so that they'll be better than you. Ultimately, that's the purpose of mentoring someone, is that you are overseeing someone who's smarter and better at their job than you are, so that they can go on to do the things that they need to do. That being said, I didn't do that for myself. I stuck around in one company for many, many years. Absolutely loved it. It was the most rewarding experience that I've had in my career. And I was there for 17 years, and I've only recently transitioned into something new. So I might be arguing with myself.
No, I love that. I love the fact that you're presenting it like a father-son relationship, right? Where you want your child to have more. And then when they do go out and get better than you, it's not that you're upset, but it's like that brings you the most joy. It reminds me of, so there's a previous guest on the podcast was Jay Steinfeld. And Jay, he sold window blinds and shades online. Eventually, he made his company 300 million and sold to Home Depot. Really an amazing story. But it's amazing how now different people who worked for him have started their own businesses and own companies. And as much as he talks about his own success, equally or more, he's so excited about all these people that he's, helped. And I love it.
Yeah, no, that's the goal, Things catch up to you. There's guys who are a lot younger, smarter, more ambition, and they're gonna overtake. If you can give them a little bit of guidance, or if you can give them a little bit of a piece of your learnings, and they go on to do great things, I think you need to be happy for the guys and really explore happiness for them, because that's important. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think now is a good time to pivot into content creation and production. So I know you've been a part of some incredibly impactful and cool content over your career. What's your general approach to content creation for a new campaign?
So for a new campaign, it's a bit tricky at the moment, but I would like to answer the question a little bit differently. And again, from a learning that I took from a very negative experience, which was COVID. You can never pinpoint one thing. You can't plan, execute 100%. There's going to be things that go wrong. There's going to be things that go right. Flexibility, I find, is key. If you're not able to bend with the times, try something new, be it AR, be it not AR, whatever it might be, you're always going to be stagnant. You're never going to be going forward. You're never going to achieve something great within that. Flexibility is important. When COVID struck and where I was, we had to pivot the business into not content creation, but content adaptation. There was no content being created. All we could do was take content and repurpose it into certain other constructs. It worked. It was good, and it got us through. It got us through a very bad time where I think a lot of people unfortunately didn't get through. If we weren't flexible enough and didn't bend like the reed, or whatever the saying might be, I think we would have been in a very different situation. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answers the question. It's not so much about from the start of a campaign to the end of the campaign. I think ultimately flexibility is required in order to achieve something from brief to execution to output. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because I think whether it's a website or whether it's a content piece, at least from my experience, no matter what at the beginning, your outset of what you wanted to do and accomplish, it's always different, right? It's always going to be
every single time is different. I mean, it could be something as topical as budget. It could be everyone's really keen to do a great piece on the beach, but it's raining that day. Flexibility, it's key and it's important, and I think it's the one of the driving principles I try and find. If something is going wrong, how do we turn it around and make it into a positive and go forward to evolve it into something better? Yeah.
Do you feel like you have to teach that to your clients even before you start with them? Like, hey, it may not be perfect. You got to be flexible. Or is it something that comes up more often during the project?
It varies. I think most clients probably understand. They might be irritated within the moment, within the time, but once you conclude the project and once you get something out and once the magic is made and you've polished everything and all the nice goodies, I think there's realization there. But again, there's going to be to and fro, back and forth, arguments with the client, with the creative team, with whoever it might be. And again, it brings it back to the flexibility of things. If you aren't flexible in those situations, you're not going to be able to get anything out. So some clients might be a bit more rigid, but I think mostly as a whole, a lot of clients are succumbing to that thinking now, I think, yeah.
So do you have a media type that you prefer the most, whether it's video, audio, written?
From a media perspective, there isn't really like a single piece of media that I would say that's the ultimate. Every campaign, every brief has a requirement. Who is it going to speak to? Who's it going to get to? Who's the audience? It could be a billboard. It could be, digital billboard. It could be TV. It could be a small piece of content. It could be anything. It's not a specific media piece, but I think it's the best media placement that I think speaks best to the audience. And it's important to build whatever content it might be around that, speaking to the audience.
Yeah, I love it. So it's more about creating this message, this visual, and then you then take it and you can put it and create it in many different forms. In a world that seems to be perpetually moving to shorter and shorter attention spans, and we know that because we both have kids, and therefore shorter form content, do you have a preference between short content or long content? And if so, why?
So I don't have a preference, but I am seeing a big uptake on the shorter content. I think there's been a lot of attention that I think I'd like to include myself in the youth, but the youth is they're double or triple screening these days. So what they're doing is they're watching TV, they're on their phone and their iPad or something to that effect. So if you have something that's drawn out, 25 minutes, and there is a place for that, 100%. But I find the shorter content is the content that's really grasping people's attention. How you go and achieve that grasp of the attention is a whole nother situation. But yeah, to answer your question, I think the shorter content is really where I think it's evolving a lot more and growing. Yeah.
And do you feel like your clients are bought into that concept? Like, are they like, yeah, we need shorter content? Or do you feel like for some of them, you still have to educate them? Hey, a 10-minute video wouldn't be so great.
When we get briefed on a campaign, we generally get a media schedule. We're looking to do digital billboards, YouTube bumpers, pre-rolls, a nice content piece, things like that. So I think clients have got a good grasp what's required when, where, and how. It's about taking the message and being hypercritical, the message for the medium. Obviously, for example, a digital billboard, you don't have much time to get the person's attention, the message across, because they're driving. So it's about appropriating the media with the message. And I think clients do understand that. Obviously, there's always going to be educational means required, but I think that most clients do sort of grasp that, yes.
Ailey, earlier in your career, you were in more account management type of roles. Was content production always your goal? What drew you into that field?
So when I started, I was in account management and started off as an account executive. And I worked on campaigns where production was required. When I built myself up in the account management perspective, I went from account executive to account manager to account director to a BD. All the accounts that I worked on required a production arm. There was always production that was required. It was above the line. Many of the clients that we worked on was through the lines. There was always production needed. And the agency I worked at needed everybody to just put two hats on their head. Everybody had to do this and that. And there was no, I'm better at this or better at that. Everyone had to do multiple roles. It was a smaller agency, and they actually won Small Agency of the Year. They wanted to be mean. They wanted to be lean. They wanted to be small. Everyone driven. Everyone trying these things. Production landed in my lap because of the clients that we held. I grew a love for it. I had a freelance producer who I worked with for 17 years now, but started off working with them back then, and grew a love for it. It was always something new. There was always something different. There's always something to learn, something to try, a new approach to take. And so it landed in my lap essentially, but the love for it grew over my career within client service, account management. Essentially what happened was when I was thinking of moving away from account management and getting more into production, an opportunity arose to go and run a content production house. And yeah, so I would say the love of it grew while I was in a different field.
So one obvious common thread through the work you've published in the past is big emotion and not shying away from emotional verbiage. How do you decide which emotion you're really wanting to draw out of the content consumer?
I suppose it varies between every campaign, but for me, it's positive engagement, essentially. if you are able to get someone who goes online all the time to say, "Oh, I don't like that deal," or "Your company didn't do well," because no one goes online anymore and says, "Oh, well done for sending me those shoes. My feet weren't wet," or no one goes online and says, "Well done for something the product was supposed to do." People are very easily able to go online and provoke negative sentiment to brands, to people, whatever it might be. In a short answer, I find positive engagement, and there's certain ways and rounds to do such things, but positive engagement to your viewers, to whoever's watching your content or absorbing it is something I find quite important. Yeah.
So working for or with your father, that's an interesting dynamic few can relate to. I know I can because I've done it. What have been some of your favorite aspects of working with your dad?
My dad was a massive driving force within the advertising world in South Africa. So his sheer vast knowledge of advertising, just constantly being pushed down on us, being at home before I joined advertising to when I, joined his advertising agency. His vast knowledge is there's not many others out there who's done what he's done. Obviously working with family, as Dan, you can relate, is always difficult. There's, sometimes you are treated as a child, not as an employee or a resource. But if you take that and put it into a positive use, you can evolve faster. I'm not talking about nepotism here. I'm talking about, you go home and you're constantly talking about the campaign, or, you're at a Sunday lunch together and there's always the same connection and you're always speaking about the same things. And, to that aspect, working with family, I think is obviously quite difficult. I'm pretty sure he would agree, probably more than I would agree. But having someone who's probably forgotten more about advertising than I'll know, obviously that's just sheer experience was the experience he was able to guide, push, excel me was critical.
So you've clearly made your own mark on the world and advertising in South Africa and in general. Were you or your father the stronger pusher for that drive? So was it like, Ailey, you gotta make your own self, or was it more like you, like, oh, like I gotta, here's my dad, but I gotta be my own man and be successful?
I don't want to say either of us were. I think it was a 50-50. But that being said, I will tell you a story. We were starting a content division, and I went overseas to LA to the broader group to learn about how guys have done it overseas, be it in LA or be it in New York, wherever it might be. And we were there for insights about guys who have done it, where they are, step by step, what they did, a learning experience. And there was quite a few people there. And I randomly sat down at a table in LA, never been, sitting next to this lady, wonderful lady, introduced myself and I said, "Hi, I'm Raphael Gavin." And she looked at me and said, "Raphael Gavin, do you know Louis Gavin?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, he's my dad." And that far away from home in LA, she heard the word Gavin and automatically went to there. And so I'd like to say, who was the greater push? I would like to say it was 50-50, but it was because of who he was and how people knew what he had done within the industry that sort of drove me to do something for my own. I didn't want to have to go to China next and someone say, "Oh, Louis Gavin, your dad." So it was, I would like to say 50-50, but it's probably a little bit more on his side.
But you know what? I think just knowing you, it's amazing. I really feel like you have accomplished that. Like you have built yourself up and become really successful in your own right, which is amazing. And you've worked really hard, so you deserve it. Now that you're a father, how has that changed the way you look at having worked with your father? Like, do you cut him some more slack now that you know what it is to be a dad?
So having worked with my father, obviously I was applied a harsher stick. Got to do this, got to be right, brought you in, you got to do the right things. And obviously it excelled me into what I've done. With relation to my kids, I wouldn't want to work with them. I don't think it's something that I would want to do. I think they are, well, even right now, I think they're infinitely they've got more wisdom than I do. But I would like them to follow their own path, and I wouldn't want to work together with them. I think I wouldn't be the best teacher for them. Let's put it that way. Where I had a good teacher, I don't think I would be the best teacher for them. Has it changed the way I've tried to bring them up? I don't think so. I had good parenting, good mentorship when it came to being dragged up, and obviously I've tried to emulate that with my kids as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you look at like the generational. So like your dad tried working with his dad. It didn't work. So he decided to go into advertising. You guys worked together. And then now it's kind of like, okay, I'd rather my kids not work with me. So who knows what will happen in the future. But it's just interesting, right? It's just interesting how these things change.
Look, I don't want to say it was peaches and cream all the time. But like I said, it was an experience that I don't think I could have gotten from anyone else or anywhere else. So yeah.
All right. So it's time for our lightning round. I know you're a big movie buff. When I was in South Africa with you, we had so much fun just going to movies all the time and watching movies. So we both love movies. Let's talk about your top 3 movies.
Top 3 movies. Can I say Lord of the Rings 1, 2, and 3? Can we be done with this? No. My all-time favorite actor is Sean Connery. Absolutely loved him. And weirdly enough, most people would think I would go to James Bond, but I didn't. It's a movie called The Rock. I enjoyed when I was young watching it. I watched it many times, and I even got my mom into watching it. And she and me always used to have this little bit of a banter trying to put Sean Connery's accent on. Don't ask me to do it. I can't do it. But so the Rock was one of my all times. Obviously, the Lord of the Rings series. I'm a big geek, and I love the Lord of the Rings. Play the games, watch the movies, love it all. And recently, I watched a movie that I absolutely loved. It was I like watching movies to sort of turn off. I want to watch a documentary or anything like that. I watch this stuff so I can sort of blank out for a bit. And I watched The Grey Man. And as an action movie, I absolutely loved that. It was start to finish, had the emotions, had the action. Recommend watching it and turning your brain off for a bit and just enjoying pure, unadulterated action entertainment.
What's the next big thing? What can people expect from Raphael Gavin?
So I've recently joined a new company, which is absolutely amazing, a company called Levergy in South Africa here. And we are looking to really build a content division here. There is so much rich opportunities to sort of really, really portray clients' stories, be it from whatever content, whatever medium that you want to speak about, but really build a hub here that is the number one thought of content creation hub within South Africa. If we can pull it off the next couple of years, I will call myself lucky and I can check a big tick off one of my goals in life. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see that happen, and I'm sure it will. So, Ailey, where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
You can actually go onto Levergy's website, go have a look at their socials. They are doing amazing things. They're an amazing bunch of guys. Culture that these guys have is just phenomenal. Culture is exceptional in this place. Everyone is, better than the next. There's just massive things that are going to happen here. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, Ailey, thank you so much for being a guest on the Digital Marketing Mentor. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Digital Marketing Mentor. We'll chat with you next time.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.